Have you ever wanted to look into retro games but aren't sure where to begin? Do you ever wonder which classic games stand the test of time and which ones don't hold up? These are some questions that have been bothering me for a while now, and I think it's about time to do something about it. So I'm going through gaming's history one game at a time to try to find the best games of all time. Welcome to the Gaming Archaeologist. Super Mario Bros. Was a massive hit when it first came out, and it still holds up pretty well even to this day. A sequel was inevitable, but what the US got was a little different than what they were expecting. The original Super Mario Bros. 2, later released as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, was very similar to the first game, except with the difficulty cranked up to sadistic levels. However, Nintendo thought that it would be too hard for Western players. As a result, it was initially not released outside of Japan, and we instead got a different Super Mario Bros. 2, which was just a reskin of a game called Doki Doki Panic with Mario characters replacing the original protagonists. While seen as a rather peculiar entry, many have embraced it as a true Mario game, and it is considered a classic. But does it hold up as well as the first game? Let's take a look. It's fairly obvious that this wasn't originally a Mario game, as the gameplay is a bit different from the first game. The visual style is more surreal and dreamlike, which fits given that it's all technically a dream, and the levels don't strictly have you go from left to right and overcome platforming challenges. There is some of that, but there's a much greater abundance of puzzles that block your path. You can choose from 4 different characters, each with their own unique playstyle, and while several of the power-ups from the first game make an appearance, they often serve a different purpose. Despite how different the game feels from the first one, however, it still does seem like a Mario game. The goal is still to reach the end of the level, and the process of doing so is still incredibly enjoyable, thanks to the fantastic gameplay and music. And the differences help it to stand out from the original. The first Super Mario Bros. Established the basic template that pretty much every 2D platformer has followed ever since. Super Mario Bros. 2 also uses this template, but it experiments with it by having levels that can have the player moving up or down or looping around rather than just going from left to right. There's also far more puzzles to break up the platforming, so the game tests the player's thinking skills as well as their reflexes and maneuverability. The game can get very weird at times. Very, very weird. But that just adds to the charm of the overall experience. There's only one big flaw with the game, and it unfortunately does compromise the experience a bit. Like many other NES games, Super Mario Bros. 2 has a live system, and when you run out, you go all the way back to the beginning. The game is fun enough that I could actually forgive it if it sent you back to the beginning of a world when you ran out of lives, but forcing the player to start all over is just ridiculous. And unlike in the first game, there aren't any warp pipes that allow you to get back to where you were, or if there are, they're significantly more difficult to find than in the first game. So, does it hold up? Looking at it as a whole, I'd have to say yes. While the live system does bother me, the rest of the game is incredibly good, and one flaw isn't enough to keep me from recommending this classic title. It's definitely worth looking into if you haven't already. My final score for Super Mario Bros. 2 is a 7 out of 10. So that concludes my review of Super Mario Bros. 2. What do you think? What's your favorite Mario game for the NES? Are there any NES games you'd like me to review that I haven't covered yet? Whatever your thoughts are, be sure to let me know in the comments below. The next game I'll be taking a look at is Zelda 2. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.